Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name's Terry, and if there's one truth life has drilled into me, it's this. People can commit awful things without blinking an eye. They lie, they cheat, they wound the very ones who believe in them most. And they do it without hesitation, without shame, at least until they run out of escape routes. That's when excuses arrive, when the tears flow, when suddenly they remember how to beg for forgiveness. But by then, it isn't remorse, it's desperation. For years, I convinced myself that my wife was a good woman. I truly believed we had built something real on trust and love. But looking back now, I see that betrayal doesn't happen in a single moment. It sneaks in gradually, through little cracks you don't notice until it's too late. I want you to really understand me, because this story isn't only about infidelity. It's about everything I lost. It all started back when I still believed in us. That's when I met Madison at work. At the time, I was just another employee fighting to move up the corporate ladder. She, though, was relentless. Long hours, fierce ambition, always trying to shine brighter than everyone else. She wasn't the type of woman you could overlook. Our company had a strict no-dating rule, but that didn't stop the sparks. It began with small conversations between meetings, harmless moments here and there. At first, I thought nothing of it, but gradually something shifted. We started staying late just to talk, lingering after hours because neither of us wanted to leave. Soon those chats turned into late-night texts, the kind that make you grin at your phone like a fool. Before long, we were sneaking out for lunch together, finding excuses to bump into each other in the break room. Like teenagers with a secret crush, we knew the risks. If anyone discovered us, it could mean our jobs. But at the time, that danger only made it feel more thrilling, like our own private world. Then, it became more than just excitement. The more time we spent together, the harder it was to pretend we were only coworkers. This wasn't a fling anymore. We wanted something lasting. And if that was going to happen, something had to change. That's when I made my decision. I'd always dreamed of starting my own business, but fear of losing a steady paycheck kept me stuck. Madison gave me a reason to take the leap. I wasn't careless about it. I saved, planned, mapped everything out. Once I felt ready, I walked into my boss's office and handed in my resignation. It wasn't easy giving up stability, but in my mind, it was worth it. Finally, I could build something of my own, and more importantly, I could be with Madison without hiding. Months later, we got married. It wasn't extravagant. People called it intimate, which really meant we couldn't afford much, but it felt perfect. She kept her corporate job, while I threw myself into building my business. The first year went well. She cheered me on while I supported her career. We were both busy, but we always made time for each other. At night, we'd stay up talking about everything and nothing. For years, I believed life was falling into place. I was certain I had made the right choices, that we were building a future together. But no marriage shatters overnight. After 5 years, ours was different. The spark had faded, the bond was thin, and intimacy, well, I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. We had always been busy, but at least we used to make room for each other. Then things changed. She had excuses. She was tired. She had long days. She needed to catch up on work. At first, I understood, who doesn't have rough days? But those excuses became constant. She started coming home later and later. Meetings ran over. Client dinners dragged on. Traffic was bad. Every night, I'd suggest doing something together. And every night she'd sigh, "Not tonight, Terry. I'm exhausted." I told myself it was just a rhythm of marriage, that the honeymoon stage always fades. Maybe it was just two career-driven people drifting into routine. So I stopped pushing. I gave her space. I thought things would balance out eventually. But here's the truth about marriage. When one person pulls away and the other stops trying, the distance only grows. And that's exactly what happened. Our talks shrank to surface-level updates. Work, bills, schedules. The house felt colder, like we were polite roommates sharing space. I pretended that was fine, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. One evening, while working at my desk, my pen ran dry. No big deal. I'd just grab another. Madison always kept random items in her purse. So I checked there. I unzipped the side pocket, expecting to grab a pen. But what I found stopped me cold. It wasn't a pen, it was a small bottle of pills. Madison wasn't on any medication that I knew of. I turned in my hand, read the label, and the name didn't sound familiar. Curious, I searched it online. The result froze me. The drug was used to treat sexually transmitted diseases. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. She hadn't let me near her in months. She always said she was too tired. So why did she need medication for an STD? There was only one explanation, but I wasn't finished. My instincts told me to keep looking. My hand shook as I dug deeper into her bag, and then I found hotel receipts. Several of them. Different dates, different amounts, all from a hotel I'd never been to. The earliest one went back months. I stood there staring, realizing my wife had been meeting someone else, and not just once. This had been happening for a long time. And the worst part? She wasn't even protecting herself. My first instinct was to storm out and demand answers. But then reality snapped me back. If I confronted her now, she'd deny everything, spin excuses, maybe even destroy the evidence right in front of me. I couldn't let that happen. Instead, I carefully photographed everything, the pill bottle, the receipts, every detail. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it, leaving no sign I knew. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and thought about my life. The very next morning, I was sitting in a lawyer's office. This wasn't just about catching Madison. It was about what came after. My lawyer asked me, if you confront her, what do you want to happen next? That question hit me hard. Until then, I had been consumed with betrayal, anger, and the need to expose her. But I hadn't considered the aftermath. He didn't sugarcoat anything. If I wanted out of the marriage without being ruined, I had to play carefully. Divorce wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Madison held the upper hand. Without undeniable proof, she could deny it all, flip the story, and even paint herself as a victim. That's when my lawyer explained the next step. I needed evidence that was irrefutable, something that could hold up in court. That meant hiring a private investigator. I agreed immediately. Within hours, my lawyer's contact had Madison's schedule, the receipts, even the name of her medication. All I could do was wait. The investigation lasted over a month. During that time, I had to act normal, like nothing was wrong. But each day, I grew closer to the truth. And when the PI finally called, I wasn't sure I was ready. But once I saw the evidence, I knew there was no going back. Madison's affair wasn't a slip-up. It had been going on for a long time. And her lover? A senior executive at her company. A man I had even shaken hands with at events. The photos and videos made me sick. In that moment, I knew our marriage was beyond repair. There was no saving it. But if Madison thought I'd let her ruin me, she was wrong. Even with the proof, I couldn't confront her carelessly. Divorce cases often turn men into villains, even when they're the ones betrayed. I had to be smart. First, I protected my assets. I had built my business from the ground up, and I wasn't about to let her take half. I transferred real estate, investments, and savings to my parents. On paper, they weren't mine anymore, but in reality, they were safe. I even created an overseas trust to shield other assets. Next, I built a financial trail that made it look like my business was struggling. Not bankrupt, just barely afloat. I funneled money through different accounts, timed expenses strategically, and made sure my records painted me as a man barely keeping his company alive. That way, if she demanded a share, there'd be little take. On paper, she was a stable one. Not me. It took weeks, but once everything was secure, I was ready to confront her. One evening, she walked in as usual, tired from work. She dropped her bag, sighed, and had no idea her world was about to collapse. I sat at the table with a glass of wine, calm. When she passed by, I told her, "Sit down." She looked confused but obeyed. I slid an envelope across the table. She opened it, and the moment her eyes fell on the photos inside, I saw her expression shift. Pictures of her with her lover. Along with them, a flash drive. She didn't need to ask what was on it. She knew. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She didn't even act ashamed. She simply placed the envelope down, looked me in the eye, and said, "I don't regret a thing." Then she warned that if I divorced her using this evidence, she'd still take half of everything I owned, maybe more, by painting me as worse than the devil in court. That confirmed what I already knew about who she had become. But I didn't react. I took a slow sip of wine, leaned back, and let her think she had power. She had no idea what was coming next. The very next morning, a courier knocked on our door. I stayed seated, letting her answer. She signed, brought the box inside, and opened it. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by me. The shock on her face was priceless. This wasn't how she imagined it. But as she flipped through the papers, realizing I was divorcing her for infidelity, it dawned on her. She had miscalculated. She thought she was in control. She wasn't. In court, Madison strutted in like she was a victim. She acted confident, expecting to walk away with everything. But she didn't know I had already stripped myself of any visible wealth. On paper, I was broke. Meanwhile, she had been living lavishly. Dinners, hotels, shopping, all on her cards. In court's eyes, she was a wealthy one. Instead of me owing her, she was about to owe me. When the financial records were presented, reality hit her like a hammer. The settlement she dreamed of vanished. Panic set in. She tried claiming the records were false. When that failed, she switched tactics, crying, accusing me of abuse, claiming I had cheated first. She threw every desperate excuse at the judge. But without evidence, it meant nothing. Every move only dug her deeper. The trial dragged on for months. Each time, she looked more drained. And when she realized there was no escape, she tried to negotiate. She reached out privately, begging to settle outside court. We met face to face. She wasn't the arrogant woman who once told me she had no regrets. She was broken, desperate. That's when I reminded her of something. The file, the one with photos, texts, and videos of her with her boss. If her company saw it, her career would vanish overnight. That's when she crumbled. She begged me not to release it. The woman who thought she'd ruin me was now pleading for mercy. I let her sit in that fear before laying out my terms. She would agree to my settlement and walk away quietly. And she did. Looking back, I learned lessons I'll never forget. First, always protect yourself legally and financially. Love blinds you, but documents don't. If I hadn't prepared, she would have drained me dry. Instead, I walked out untouched. Second, never let emotions dictate your moves. My first instinct was confront her when I found the pills and receipts. If I had, she would have spun the story, destroyed evidence, and made herself the victim. Silence and strategy saved me. And the biggest lesson? Cheaters don't regret until they lose everything. When I first showed Madison the proof, she stared at me and said she had no regrets. But when she started losing money, the house, the life she tried to steal off my back, that's when she begged. I sometimes wonder if she ever thought the roles would flip, if she imagined herself being the one on her knees asking for mercy. I'll never know. But one thing's certain, I walked away without losing a thing. And if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't change a move.